Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about Gemini 2.0 Flash Experimental, and I'm going to do a deep dive into my use of it. So originally I had the goal of using Gemini Flash 2.0 for coding for 3 days. I didn't quite make it to 3 days, and I'll explain why as I go through this. I want to compare the results to DeepSeek and Claude, and I'll show a little bit of the DeepSeek comparison here, because I did more of that. But originally I did some Claude stuff, but I think the better comparison for me is now DeepSeek. And then I want to report on the results. So the TLDR. So first I'll say I'm not leaving DeepSeek right now. That will remain my primary. Uh, it ranged from painful to good to, to great at sometimes. But the painful to me was very painful. And because of that, I think I'm spoiled. If we go back a year ago and I had a model like Flash Experimental 2.0, I would have been so ecstatic. And that just shows like the advancement that we've had in this space, that a model as good as Flash Experimental 2.0, I can't use it daily because it just doesn't, it's not as good at doing what I particularly need to do. So I do think I am spoiled. And again, if you have a different experience with the Flash 2.0 experimental, that is awesome. I'd love to hear about it, but that was just not my experience with it. So here's an example of one of the things that really irritated me with 2.0. So I had gave it some code. It was not even that long. It was like 150 lines of code. And basically, I just wanted to know some ideas on why this close button could be getting overridden because I'm embedding this in particular sites, right? So like, and I gave it a theory. Like my theory is that something in the user's template is overriding my settings. What could it be? So I already even directed it. Like I gave it an idea. And here's the response it gave. It's basically a definition of my code. Like there's no answer here. It just keeps going all the way down to like all the things that are in my code. That's not what I wanted at all. It didn't even answer my question. I did a follow-up question and then it started answering my question. But I don't understand like why it just totally ignored that question. Like it just feels like maybe this model was fine-tuned to answer in a particular way, or like maybe my question needs to be at the top. Maybe I'm not doing a good job formatting what I need to do for Flash Experimental 2.0. But I've not had this problem in a long time with different models. DeepSeek, on the other hand, flawless. Same exact prompt, gave me everything, gave me the like 5 different options to try, the one it recommended, and then a final fix. Just beautiful. Like I can't even ask for a better answer. Like it was exactly what I wanted, and I only had to ask it one time. It knew what I was asking. It gave me the code. It gave me even the full file, as well as the broken up pieces of it. It was just amazing. And then I ran into this issue where I wanted to put a little bit longer file in there, and I noticed I would paste it in, and the browser would like freeze for a bit. And then I was like, wait, all the code's not actually going in there. What's going on here? And you can't even upload a file in this particular one. So I ended up moving on, thinking about it a little bit more, and I said, I know when it first came out, and I've used it off and on a bit, and I don't remember having any issue putting longer code files in. And then I realized I was in the Gemini.google.com UI. In my head, I was like, oh, if I go here, that's going to be the same as AI Studio. This is just going to be uh, the more user-friendly version of that. But it isn't. Like it's super limited. It's kind of laggy. The context you can actually paste in is just very limited. So what you really want to do is you want to go to aistudio.google.com and work in here. You get a humongous context window of like 1 million tokens. It is absolutely phenomenal. That is one of the strengths of this thing. I am just blown away that it's able to do that. And I did do some tests where I was like building up the context, and it does get slower. So the response time gets slower as the context gets full, but it's still really, really, really good at holding all of that in its knowledge. You can also configure settings when you're in AI Studio. So again, if you know me by now, you know that I really am a big fan of messing around with temperature. Typically closer to zero is what you want for code. I also love that they give you tools like structured output and code execution, function calling. I use function calling a lot with AI agents, and then grounding as well. There are also some advanced settings, but again, this isn't something that you can even configure in DeepSeek, so you have to kind of take that for what it is. I personally like the control because I love running like LLMs locally, and I already am very familiar with a lot of the settings that you would do here. But for a typical software engineer that may not understand sort of how LLMs work, because I know a bunch of them that do not understand what temperature does, and they just leave it at the default. It's not going to be that useful for them. So anyway, I move on now that I'm in AI Studio, and I give it a file where I want it to basically implement something super minor for me, and it ended up changing my code in such a way that it actually lost loading my signals, which are just a list of like pills, super simple. And I told it about it, and it gave me an updated version of it, and it was still broken. And I told it again, and it was still broken. And by the fourth time, I was able to get it to actually correct what it had done wrong. Again, I give this an okay because I eventually got to where I wanted, but I was like pulling my hair out the entire time. Where I had a good result was here. I had this UI where I had built a new component myself. I had it in, and I basically wanted to swap some of the functionality I had my old component using into the new one. Very simple, and it did it great. Like it worked phenomenally. Didn't do any bells and whistles. The one thing I would say is it just gave me all the code for the entire file again. What I would have preferred is it to say, you know, change this here, change this here, change this here. Here's all the code. Because what I normally would not recommend anyone doing is copying all the code that AI generates and just putting it in. Like you really do need to know what's in your code, and like taking the pieces that it helps you with and putting it into your code is just so much better than trusting blindly and then wiping something that was in there before that you miss when you're testing. Then I moved to some backend, and I asked it a question. I gave it the code. I told it it's an event bridge system. I basically needed to set up a new webhook in a Shopify app, on and on and on. Anyway, it knew I was in EventBridge. I talked about it. And for some reason, it gave me an answer that was nowhere related to EventBridge and how that would actually work. It gave it to me as if I were putting it into like a EC2 instance with a traditional server and like an endpoint that I have where I register a webhook right directly in my Shopify app. So I was just baffled here because I'd given it so much context leading up to this that it just totally missed the fact that I had told it this is an event bridge event bus, not this is not going to be a standalone like endpoint that we're going to have. Anyway, that was very very frustrating, and I think the final thing that I can come to is that I'm just spoiled. This is a picture of my cat here, who is also very spoiled. But Gemini Flash 2.0 experimental is a great model. I think it's totally fine. Like if it's the only model, I worked at a company. It's the only model it let me use. I would be fine with it. But at the same time, there were times I was very frustrated with it, where it would just summarize code that I put in rather than answer my question. It would get off track and give me an answer that was nowhere related to the thing that I was trying to do. And other times it would work really well. So I don't know how I feel about this, but I will say I felt so inefficient after using DeepSeek that after about 10 hours of using Gemini Flash 2.0, I had to give up on it. I did not make it the full 30 hours. I made it about 10, and I probably will not be going back to it except in rare cases where I need a third opinion. And what I mean by that is there are times where I hit something in a LLM and I'm hit like spinning wheels and I'm not getting the progress that I want. So I'll go try Claude. I'll go try O1 Preview and then I'll go try um, Gemini Flash maybe. I'll see how that goes. But it'll be like one of my secondary. It'll remain one of my secondary LLMs. If I had to rank them right now in usage, it would be for me DeepSeek, Claude, OpenAI GPT 4o, OpenAI GPT o1 Preview. Then I would probably go to Gemini Flash Experimental 2.0 because it, I don't know, it was frustrating. And I don't know a better way to kind of put it, which is disappointing because I feel like Google is dropping the ball in so many ways. And I'm a shareholder at Google. Like I own Google stock. I want them to be successful. I would love to be able to say Gemini Flash is like the best model ever, but it just isn't. And it's disappointing because I I know I'm spoiled, but I have such high expectations for them because they should be leading the LLM revolution, but they're not. Like they're getting trounced by these other companies, in my opinion. Anyway, I sorry to be harsh on it. It's just and who knows, maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, it's gonna update and it's just gonna be phenomenal. But I don't know. It was a rough day, like using it to be honest with you, because it would be like frustration after frustration, and then it would work, and then frustration and then frustration, and then it would work, and it was just like it's really grinding to actually have that happen. Anyway, I would love to know what your experience is with Gemini Flash 2.0 experimental, and if you have a completely different one, please let me know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong with the way I'm asking questions. Maybe there's something that you know on how to communicate with it to actually get it to be better at like returning what you're looking for. But ultimately, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe. I appreciate all of you. Until next time, peace out.